Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz bassist Brandi Disterheft. We talked to her in early January 2021 about quite a bit, like her latest 2020 CD, Surfboard, COVID-19, and her life in music. She relocated to New York City to begin an apprenticeship under Miles Davis's bassist, Ron Carter. It's not only her fiery bass playing that make audiences stand up and holler, but also her innovative live shows showcasing her up-tempo swinging originals and ambient voice. Her mother was a Chicago-born jazz B3 organist who opened for acts like the Supremes and Carlos Jobim in the 1960s. So her ears were trained from the age of 5 when she began classical piano studies. Get to know her and dig this interview.
It's 2021, so let's keep our fingers crossed.
That's right. So are you in Kansas City then?
Yes.
I love that town.
You do, huh?
I was visiting my godmother who lives in the vicinity last year. Was it last year? Must have been the year before. And we missed the jam session, the famous Charlie Parker jam session, because it was on a weekend. I think we were there midweek.
Yeah. Down at the Musical Musicians Foundation. Yeah, that's an old school institution in Kansas City. Definitely a good time for sure.
Yeah, I wish I could have sat in and been a part of it, but next time. Yeah. The museum's beautiful too. They did a great job.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, that area they're really trying to build up, and so it's they're keeping the tradition alive. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, well, thanks for taking a minute out. It's great whenever I can, catch up with a musician that has a connection to Kansas City. So thanks for taking a minute out.
Yeah, thank you for asking me.
You bet. So let's start off here with releasing music during a pandemic. Last year was obviously quite a year on planet Earth, and all the musicians that released material. I mean, it's a very interesting time. What was it like last year for you? Just overall having music out and just kind of dealing with this thing that we were dealing with no live music.
It was different. I had the album already recorded. And so I really loved having the time to finish all the, marketing and work on the videos and, stuff like that. Because as a bass player in New York City, we're working like every night. So I actually really loved having the extra time. And then we did a few online shows. So that was interesting. That was great to get the whole setup recording session going in my apartment. But now, of course, we're just itching to tour.
Yeah, I think that's the name of the game right now. I think everybody is, it's been so long, waiting around for everything to kind of get back to some semblance of what it used to be before. With your new album, talk to me a little bit about what you want the listener to get from this experience. What do you want them to feel? How do you want them to walk away from this experience?
Yeah, so this album is really special because I finally got to record with this elder drummer named Portinho, who's known as like the definitive Brazilian drummer. I often quote him saying he's like the James Brown of the Brazilian funk samba. And he has this propulsive, really uplifting, modern Brazilian sound. So I've been working with this trio since I moved to New York about 10 years ago. And we have all these beautiful arrangements of, more straight ahead songs, but done in the samba style. And then I wrote some songs, and then I asked the great George Coleman to be a special guest. So it's a really interesting album, and I'm really, really happy with it. The trio went in, and we were already, a working band, so it was just a lovely experience.
Let's talk about your history. How did jazz kind of sink in for you and become your life? Like, where were you raised, and kind of what was your childhood like?
Yeah, so my mom's originally from Chicago, and she's a B3 organ player and jazz piano player. So she married a Canadian, so I grew up in Vancouver, Canada.
Okay.
And so, jazz was always being played, around the house, and, we started playing on piano and then moved over to the double bass. And then it was really my mom who pushed me to, move to New York, and I studied with Ron Carter when I got here, and just been writing and putting out albums and playing, going to the late night jam sessions, and just trying to be part of the scene.
What was the first live gig that you saw that made you think, man, this is something I want to do with my life?
Yeah, I mean, I remember we went to jazz clubs all the time when we were younger. I think it was more playing with my mom on the bandstand and her calling tunes and navigating your ears around changes and just like transcribing Charlie Parker and this language, and it's like almost like a game of sports with yourself and other people on the bandstand. And the fact that we feel like we're so close, right? You just put another like 6 months of work in and we'll master this idea or this concept. I think that's more of it. Because it was almost like forced upon us as children to, study music.
Yeah.
I think it's different. It wasn't one memory.
Yeah, right. So, it's interesting. I always hear a lot of musicians that when they come to New York and, kind of the guru, the stage master, Ron Carter. What was it like to learn under him? What did he teach you that's resonated so much throughout your life now?
Yeah, so I studied with him a few years after college when I had already been steadily working. So I knew I had heard that he's a real teacher. Of course, not just someone that revolutionized the double bass, but he has a method to his teaching. And because I suppose being a female and growing up playing hockey with my brother, I always thought like to have this big, huge, aggressive sound was the answer. And I went to him because he really refines your sound and lightens your touch. And then the bass sings, it opens up. So it was really beautiful to help me with sound. And also he has this incredible attention to detail, like no other teacher I've ever seen. So he'd be like, Brandy, I want it right, 5 times in a row, not just the first time. So it's this whole other level. Yeah.
Coming out of the gates, things have obviously worked out for you. You've gotten a Juno Award. What was that like? You got a Juno Award. Did that kind of put more pressure on you? Did it validate what you're doing? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, it validated things. It helped us tour more, and those acclimates help to bring attention to your band. So overall, it was a really positive experience. Mm-hmm. Helps with sales a bit too.
Sure.
I mean, the real call was when when you're here in New York, because it's just so exciting. There's so many scenes you can break into, even after you've been here 10 years, and new friendships and like musicians you can team up with, and so that's very real and exciting. Rather than just winning these awards. Although it helps, but...
Yeah, sure. So, why do you love jazz?
Oh, I love the beat. I love how it makes me feel. I love the language. I love sort of the rules of, it's like sort of like how they call the jazz police, and then breaking those rules, and this concept of finding these new sounds, yet still having this crazy swinging beat that makes you feel so good and makes you want to dance. I guess it's the dichotomy of it.
Sure. You've been at this for a while now, and if you have a dream tonight, you ran into your younger self right before you were starting out professionally, making albums and gigging. What advice would you give to your younger self, if you could give yourself one bit of advice?
That's a great question. I would say just like keep plowing through and don't worry about people's opinions, and don't worry about the voices in your head, and just like carry through with what you want to do. And I think I would have moved down to New York earlier. Munja had such great playing experience and learned from so many people along the way. So it's just to be more fearless.
When COVID does kind of come to a close and live gigs start picking back up, what do you hope both the musician and the audience realizes about this time away from live music?
Well, I think, that's a real treat to hear live music, and it's a treat to play for it goes both ways. very much a treat for us to perform for people and for the audience to get to hear like a working band with all the influences. So yeah, I just hope that I feel like as soon as it opens, it's almost going to be like a scramble, like everybody's fighting, fighting again for work. But I'm really excited to get on the road and start playing.
So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? I mean, I think I'm just a bass player that's composing music and trying to contribute to the jazz art form and hopefully inspiring the younger generation on the way.
Perfect. Hey, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. Thanks for the music. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Joe, and thanks very much for having me. And wonderful questions.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Chicago, Kansas City, New York, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Brandy for her time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.